Hello, I'm Peter Koutsaridis, Professor of Percussion and Music Theory at Westfield State University. I'm the principal timpanist with the Waterbury Symphony Orchestra, and I play drums in a faculty jazz group here at Westfield State. In this video, I'll walk you through some tips that will help you prepare for the upcoming district band and orchestra audition on snare drum. This solo is number 29 from the great book Portraits in Rhythm by Anthony Cerrone. This piece incorporates dynamic contrasts, short rolls, flams, drags, and sticking considerations. Each of the portraits in this book has a few sentences at the top of the page with performance tips from the composer. Of course, it is important to read these and put them into practice. This piece is a sarabande, and the composer writes, "The sarabande was a stately, dignified dance which gained popularity in Spain. It was in slow triple meter, usually without an upbeat, and frequently employed a prolonged tone or an accent on the second beat of the measure." It will be helpful to keep this in mind for phrasing in your performance. Before I get into some of the details of this etude, I want to make you aware of another book by Anthony Cerrone that has all of this music as well as a detailed full-page analysis of each of these etudes. It is called Portraits in Rhythm, Complete Study Guide. The tempo of this etude is marked quarter note equals 72. It is important to use a metronome as you practice this, and to be careful not to rush, because this will feel kind of slow. These opening measures might seem easy, but you need to watch the tempo and strive for that stately and dignified sarabande character. As always, be careful with dynamics. Make sure that the forte is nice and full, but not so loud that you have nowhere to go for the double forte passages, which come later. You'll want to hear a real difference between the forte and double forte. Also, the mezzo piano in the third line is quite soft compared to the opening, but it should not be as soft as the pianissimo passages in the second section. The roll speed I recommend for this tempo is sextuplets, or 16th note triplets. You should use a sextuplet hand motion for every quarter note roll, and a 16th note triplet hand motion for every eighth note roll. I recommend creating an exercise, practicing quarter note rolls and eighth note rolls at 72 beats per minute. Quarter note rolls, or eighth note rolls. Now I'll play the first line, which incorporates both of these. The only exception to the sextuplet, or 16th note triplet roll speed, would be at the beginning of the sixth line. The 16th note roll on beat 2 should be 2 32nd note hand motions. It should be the same sticking motion as the third beat of that measure. I'll demonstrate that measure. The sound of all the rolls should be not too tight or too closed. They are multiple bounce orchestral rolls, but they should breathe. For the dotted rhythms in the third line, make sure they are squared off and not played with a triplet feel. I like to use the right hand for the stronger dotted 16ths and the left hand for the 32nd notes. This means the right hand is constantly playing a steady eighth note pulse like this. And the left hand just drops in the 32nd notes, making them nice and close. I'll demonstrate line 3. The drags in this piece should be 2 little bounces, but very close together. Some like to do a little buzz before the main note, but I prefer to think of them as 2 little pearls, clearly 2 grace notes, but played very close together. Again. I like to use a right-right-left sticking in the passage here at the end of line 6 and going into line 7. Also, in the 6th line, be careful to keep a steady tempo with the pianissimo drags as you come out of the fast and loud 32nd note passage. And practice your flam taps, since you might want to incorporate them at the end of line 5. Also, practicing the single drag tap is also helpful in passages that combine drags and single taps. You can find a list of the snare drum rudiments on the Vic Firth website or on the Percussive Arts Society's website. Be careful of the rhythm in the last bar of the 7th line and the first bar of the 9th line. The notation is tricky. I'll play the last measure of line 7. And now the first measure of line 9. The last measure should have a separation between the roll and the last 2 notes. I like to cut off the roll quietly on the end of 2 before the last 2 notes. And lastly, don't forget to repeat the section in lines 3 through 5. Okay, let's talk about sight reading. I tell my students that the best way to get better at sight reading is to spend time doing it. Try to do a little bit every day, using any music you can get your hands on. I think it's important to find music that is not too easy or too difficult. If it's too difficult, you may not be able to play the music with continuity, which can be discouraging. On the other hand, you'll want your sight reading material to be sufficiently challenging. When you prepare to sight read on snare drum, make sure you check out all the important information in the printed music before you try to play it. Look for tricky rhythms and grace notes. Find the dynamic markings, repeat signs, first and second endings, and anything else on the page. Once you've identified these things, find the hardest looking spot, think about how fast you can play it, and start at that tempo. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and that you enjoy the process of preparing for your audition. Work hard and have fun. And we look forward to seeing you at Westfield State. Take care.